Let's check out the NexiGo NS32 with Hall effect joysticks. So this is the NexiGo NS32, and it says pretty clearly on the box just here that it's got Hall effect joysticks. Now, alongside that, it's got dual vibration, turbo function, 6-axis gyro, and it's wireless, and you can get them in some pretty funky colors. Now, you probably guessed on the front here, we've got this version. And this is the, I don't know what they call it, the A2H, apparently. So, I mean, it's the Galaxy one, right? And it looks pretty cool. It does look pretty cool. I was a little bit like, when I saw the picture, I was like, it looks a little bit tacky. But actually, I think it looks pretty cool, you know? It's more of a satin finish. It doesn't seem to be a fingerprint magnet, and it doesn't look like overly cheap because this isn't like paint. It's actually in, you know, it's like in the material, which is really, really cool. So I was worried that you would scratch it off and stuff like that. But basically, it's a pretty simple Switch controller, but it is just a Bluetooth controller. So I imagine you can just use this on PC and probably like Android and stuff like that. But let's go over what we've got. I mean, it's pretty simple looking in terms of, you know, controllers, especially ones that I end up taking a look at, right? We've got our plus button, our minus button, we've got our screenshot button, we've got our home button, we've got a D-pad, we've got our joysticks, we've got our face buttons, which are of course in a Switch layout. We've got R, L, ZL, ZR. We've got a sync button at the top here. We've got a USB-C on the top. We've got our, you know, player number LED on the bottom just there. And then on the back, we've got this kind of like textured material, so you can, you know, have a bit more grip on it, but it is just straight up plastic. So, you know, it could get a little bit sweaty, but that grip on the back definitely like helps with the grip, of course. And then we've got our turbo button on the back, and that's pretty much it. There's no assignable back paddles or anything like that. It's a pretty standard controller. These are the face buttons. Now, they feel fine. They don't stick. They seem okay, you know, but it's just membrane, you know, like classic membrane. I won't say there's like a lot of pre or post travel, but there's like a lot of movement up and down for the spring back. They're not like quick to actuate, if that makes sense. Not even overly mushy, they're just big. They feel tall. They feel like there's a lot of distance to cover, even though there's not really any pre or post travel. So they're fine, and I'm glad that they don't stick or anything, but you know, like that's that really. Our like screenshot buttons and stuff are just clicky. Our D-pad feels okay. I mean, it's raised quite a lot, so there's quite a lot sticking out of the controller, and there's not a very big concave on it. It's pretty flat, but you know, it's all right. It's not the best D-pad I've ever felt. It's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like it's all right. That's okay. Now the triggers, I mean, the bumpers just here, L and R are pretty mushy. ZR and ZL are just digital triggers, and they've got quite a short throw on them, but again, membrane, so a little bit mushy, but they feel okay. Like, you know, they're not going to stick or anything like that, which is fine. And now the joysticks, which is pretty cool, they've got, you know, a ring around them, and as well as that, they also have metal sort of like guards around the stick. Now, I really like that. That's probably its like best feature, right? And pretty much you're only really going to buy this because of the Hall effect joysticks, right? But we'll get into testing them soon. But just as a design choice, right? I really like it when people or companies put these metal rings under there. And also they do have like a guard around the actual joystick as well, because this does have RGB LEDs. So let me just turn on the Switch, right? So this has wake from sleep. So I'm going to turn on the Switch just here, like that. There we go. So you can see we've got RGB LEDs around the sticks, but on top of that, we've got like a plastic guard which stops rubbing, right? So that's really good. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't really matter because they're Hall effect joysticks. And the only real reason I like seeing this kind of design on a potentiometer joystick is because that aids against rubbing the plastic and paint away, which can then get inside the joystick and then cause it to drift. So potentiometer joysticks, old non-Hall effect joysticks, use friction to input the signal. And over time, dust and dirt and the paint can wear off and blah, blah, blah can get in there, and then it can cause drift, right? But Hall effect sensing joysticks is all done by magnets and a magnetic field. So there's no parts that are touching, which means any dust or dirt or anything can't affect that magnetic field, meaning that you never get drift. And also, it's much quicker to actuate the movement that you're asking it to do, meaning that it's just a quicker response. And also, they generally have a lot less dead zone because, again, it just works straight away. But we'll look at that, you know, a little bit more. But either way, I like it as just precautionary measures, that it's got that metal cap around there and it's got the extra plastic around the sticks. It makes it really smooth, you know, so it's a very, very smooth feel. I will say the sticks on the top here have got a slight bit of rubber on, and then they've got like grips around here as well and around the edges, and that's okay, but they're a bit flat for me. Like, I feel like I could slip off of these quite easily because there's not much concave there. It's quite flat, and that rubber on the top actually makes it really slippery, whereas on the sides that's really nice because they've got, like, you know, grips around, but on the top that's actually a really slippery joystick, so I'm not a big fan of that. And there seems to be a lot of motion, like, on these sticks. There's like a lot of movement, and that's a good thing, but it just feels a bit weird for me. But the sticks are nice, it's just the caps that I have like a bit of an issue with. The D-pad's not the greatest, and the face buttons are okay. Let me do a quick sound test of the face buttons and the D-pad for you. So this is the face buttons, right? So there you go. I mean, the D-pad's not overly noisy. You can hear that they're membrane face buttons, and, you know, that's all okay. Now, NexiGo is an American company, right? So they're designed in America, but they're actually made in China. And this feels a lot like the Binbok, the Nixie, the Doyoki, all of those, you know, third-party controller companies that all come from the same factory, essentially. So this feels like it comes from that same factory, but they've just changed some bits, you know, to their own specifications because it's NexiGo's company, right? But, you know, just putting that out there so you know. Now, going back to these RGB LEDs, you can actually change them, but what you need to do is hold the turbo button and then press the joystick in. So you press it in, and then that will vibrate and change the color, right? And you could basically cycle around like a bunch of different colors, and it will just be static, right? And then it goes back to the like RGB ones. But if I hold the turbo button and then double press, it goes to like a breathing sort of thing. So it will just breathe the color in and out. Whereas if I double press again, it's gonna do the same thing, but, you know, either rotating all the colors or just this like RGB looking one. I haven't waited long enough to really see because, you know, I just leave it on the static. So yeah, that just breathes in and out of that. And if I do it again, it actually turns off. So you can have the lights off if you want, which will save battery life. The battery life on this is supposedly about 6 hours. It's got about 500 or 600 milliamp hour capacity battery inside it. So that's all right. You know, it's better than a PS5 DualSense, which only lasts a few hours, right? But jokes aside, you know, this has got a decent enough battery life. 6 hours is fine for me. But yeah, I mean, changing the colors is fine. It's you know, a bit of a gimmick, but if you like that, then cool. You know, there's plenty of stuff to do. I normally just leave it on this one, and that's fine enough for me. So this does have different rumble settings. It's got 3 different rumble settings. And what we've got to do is hold that turbo button and then press up and down on the D-pad. And if I put it on the table, you'll definitely hear it. It's not like overly loud, and it's all right. I prefer it at 75%. It's okay. It's a pretty even rumble, but, you know, nothing special. It's not HD rumble. It just is like what it is, essentially. But the other thing it's got is, yes, it does have gyro. I think we've already mentioned that, but we've also got the turbo. So I'm going to go into Doom here. So here we are, we're in Doom, right? So I'm gonna use turbo. So I'm gonna press the turbo button and I'm gonna use shoot, which is ZR, right? So I'm gonna press it together. And now if I hold ZR, it's just gonna keep shooting for me. And you can change how quickly it does that by holding turbo and pressing minus to make it shoot less, or plus to make it shoot more. So you can do that too. Or you can press turbo and the button again, and then it will just do it for you, like indefinitely, right? Until you press it again, and then that will pause it, and then, you know, you can resume, or you can press turbo and that button again and it will stop doing it, right? But there's one thing I've got a little bit of a niggle with this controller, and it really makes me suspect, like, are they really using Hall effect joysticks? Because there's dead zone in it. And there shouldn't be dead zone if it's using Hall effect joysticks. Now, this controller actually came out in like a year ago, right? They launched this like a year ago. But this is the NS32 enhanced, and on the box it says Hall effect joystick, but I can't find anywhere else on the internet where it says that this comes with Hall effect joysticks. Doesn't even say it on their website, doesn't say it on Amazon, doesn't say it anywhere else, unless this is a new one and they've just sent me like their new version or whatever. But they've even got a video on their YouTube channel showing you that they've got 0.1% dead zone. They're sort of showing the outer circle of it, but dead zone is how far you've got to push the joystick before it registers your action, right? And usually, like, high dead zone means you have to move the stick a lot before it will engage, and low dead zone means that you can just barely touch it and it will start doing something. But this actually has massive dead zone. So if I look towards the light, because this is quite a dark game, right? If I keep pushing, right, you can see how far I'm pressing that joystick and nothing's happening, right? And just to exaggerate it, if I press all the way, there we go. It changes the camera angle, right? But if I can basically roll the joystick around and it basically won't change the camera angle. That's how bad the dead zone is. Like, so that's a lot of dead zone, like more dead zone than I've seen in most potentiometer controllers. So even if this wasn't Hall effect, I'd probably say it shouldn't have this much dead zone anyway, so unless they've not calibrated this correctly or something, I'm not entirely sure, but it seems a bit weird to me. And the same thing goes with the other joysticks, right? So I'm gonna look forward, right? And usually, I should be walking forward by now. If you look at my finger, I'm pressing that forward probably like 10% and nothing is happening, right? That's probably about 50% moved. Look how far the angle of the joystick is and nothing is happening. Right, and now if I push it a bit more, now he's very, very creeping slowly, right? It might help to show you sideways. Still nothing. Now I've started moving. And look at that. I've got the joystick at like 45 degrees, right? So that's the dead zone area there. So all of that is pretty much not doing anything. So again, I can almost roll the whole controller, the joystick around like this, and it's not doing anything really. You know, I might catch it and it might actually start moving, but the same with this one, look. It's got a really large dead zone. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, and with that alone, I wouldn't really recommend it if you're going to be playing first-person shooters like this, or if you're considering yourself as more of like a hardcore gamer and you wanted the Hall effect sticks at a reasonable price. Probably don't get this. This is more ideal for, you know, people that don't really care about dead zone and about Hall effect joysticks. I mean, really, if you're marketing this as Hall effect, you should probably be putting it towards the hardcore gamers that care, right? But for me, this is more of like an average sort of person controller that maybe wants to play a bit of Mario Kart, or wants a second controller for their kid to use, or their partner, or whatever. This is fine. Most people wouldn't even really care, and if you're just playing some RPGs or whatever, this would probably be fine. But for like shooters, which is what they were marketing this towards in their YouTube video, I can't recommend it. So, I mean, if NexiGo come back to me and say, oh yeah, it's like not calibrated, or there's an issue with this model or something, then I will update the comments down below. But straight away from my testing, there's a pretty great dead zone there. So there we go. So how much is the NS32 just here? Well, this is about $40 or about £40 here in the UK, which is more towards like $50+, right? We always get ripped off. But anyway, this is about $40 or £40 here in the UK. And that's okay, like that's all right. But I've tested some controllers that are a lot cheaper than that have less dead zone, and yeah, like, okay, I mean, it's fine. It's fine, like, it's a fine controller. There's nothing wrong with the build quality. All the buttons and stuff feel okay. The D-pad's a bit pants. You know, like, the joysticks themselves are okay. And if they are Hall effect, then great, you'll never get drift, but the dead zone is just really large, you know, and there's no macro buttons or anything like that. Yeah, you've got turbo, but overall, it's just okay. I can't really recommend it because of that dead zone, but again, if you're just looking for a second controller or whatever, then go for it. Yeah, okay. But yeah, there we go. If you've got one of these, then let me know down in the comments and let me know your thoughts on it as well. And once you're here, go and check out another video by me, and also from me and AJ over on our podcast channel, where we talk about all things gaming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.